Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
The Print of the Cuff, presented by IIFL Wealth and Asset Management, powered by Raheja Corp, corporate partner AU Small Finance Bank, in association with global insurance brokers, airline partner SpiceJet.
Welcome to this episode of Off the Cuff, which promises to be a masterclass, not in management, not just in management, but in building an enterprise from the grassroots, building a brand from the grassroots, when your competitors are the biggest brands and the richest companies in the world, and then succeeding. So our guests today, the man who did it, that is Harsh Mariwala, the entrepreneur. You know Marico products, and you know the industry he's built up and the empire he's built up, and how happy people who've invested with him and who worked with him have been. And I presume those who use his products also, otherwise he would not be so successful. He has put it all together in a book. It's a kind of a how-to book called Harsh Realities. And we'll ask him why Harsh Realities. And with him, we have Professor Ramcharan, Guru Ramcharan. Ramcharan ji is the management guru respected all over the world. Author of many books, many treatises. His advice is sought by many people. His advice is sought by the wisest. He and Harshi have written this book together. So we've got a double delight now. A fine entrepreneur and somebody who knows the mind of entrepreneurship and business, also with ethics and laws better than most people. So thank you very much, Harsh Mariwala ji and Ramcharan ji, for agreeing to be on this episode of Off the Cuff. And let me, Harsh ji, if you would permit me, because Ramcharan ji is the guru, let me start with him first.
Sure, of course. He gets the first
Ramcharan ji,
priority, of course.
You look at businesses all over the world. You look at many businesses in India. You're on the board of many companies. You've written books. What is it that you find so unique about what Harsh Mariwala did that you co-authored this book with him, and the reason you commend him and his enterprise?
I think, knowing Harsh for 30 years, three things stand out, and they are lessons for everybody. You start in a family situation and you resolve issues of family situations. Indian families are different from the families I work with in Brazil and China and Japan. Number two is resilience, tenacity to build something. But there's a third one that should be actually number one. I'm allowed to see many CEOs, many entrepreneurs, but nobody is better than Harsh's persistence and ability to observe the consumer. Here, the family business was more to business, a commodity business. And Harsh goes outside the box, personally goes in the car, drives it into areas no family member has been before, observes the consumer, sees their pain points, goes to the retailers, see the difficulties, work backwards, what must be done for the consumer. In those days, that was rare, it's still rare. And that's a great lesson for everybody in building it. That courage to deal with the large company, which the book clearly lays out, is unbelievable. And that is, his conviction comes from knowing the consumer.
So every time I ask you something, I know that I will get many threats. So I will just take advantage of this. And before I go to Harshi, let me ask you a follow-up on a point you raised just now. You said the Indian family is very different from families, say, in China and Japan, did you say, or the US?
Yes.
Yeah.
China, Japan, Brazil.
Yeah. So
I've been in all the three.
How is the Indian family different?
You see, our value system inside is different. We have joint families living together, 3 joint families, 2 joint families. Usually the father or the founder almost dictatorial, and people easily cannot reply to the person. So they're very different in that sense. And so living in joint family inside and not having a very clear way to communicate. You know, in our families in those days, the wives are not allowed to talk to the father-in-laws and be able to have a discussion on par. That's not the case in Brazil. That's not the case in China. That's not the case in Japan. That's definitely not the case in America.
So is it harsh realities or is it harsh realities?
Yeah, I just got the first copy of the book today.
Yeah.
So it's harsh realities. It's a pun on my name. Yeah.
Not your name. Yes. So why harsh realities?
So I was in search for a good title, and I think this is something which I liked because there are real life situations which are very different, and I've had lots of failures which have been more than adequately covered in the book, and more important than failure, the learnings from the failures. So the real situation of an entrepreneur is very different. You know, everybody thinks that you come with a big vision and then, you set it up, but it's not like that. The vision evolves as you succeed in business, and then the environment goes on changing. So you go on changing your business as the environment goes on changing. Who had predicted that COVID will come in and all the new opportunities out of COVID which will come in? Nobody in the world could have predicted. So I'm saying this vision is a little bit overdone. I'm not saying that entrepreneurs should not have vision, but the vision changes with the changes in environment, new opportunities open up. So to have a vision cast in stone is not sound. And I think entrepreneurs make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes, okay to fail. A child falls down many times before the child learns walking, And I think similarly, entrepreneurs should take risks. It's okay to fail. But because if there is a fear of failure amongst entrepreneurs, then they will not succeed. And most of my successes come out of learnings from my failures.
So you mentioned that, an unusual take. You said the opportunities COVID presented. Usually when people talk of COVID, when entrepreneurs, businessmen, investors, business people, I shouldn't say businessmen, they talk of COVID, they talk of not opportunities, they talk of threats, they talk of the damage they've suffered. But how come Harsh Mariwala talks of opportunities that COVID provides?
So I think that's the contrary in me. Of course there are negatives, and nobody discounts the negatives, especially amongst those who cannot suffer, who suffer a lot, or those who had a loss in life in their family. But more importantly, what are the new opportunities? And there are a whole host of opportunities, whether it's in the area of health or immunity building, or even mental health, the whole digital push, whether it's e-commerce or e-consultation or e-learning. So I think the whole new world has opened up, and that's thrown huge amount of opportunities to all corporates, depending on what business they are in, whether it's improving cost structure in terms of lesser traveling or a little more working from home, or entering a new range of products which are more healthy. So I think nobody could have predicted this prior to COVID, but at least our eyes have opened up, and definitely we are looking at it from an opportunistic point of view.
So what are the things that your companies have done by way of looking at these opportunities?
So we have gone aggressive on healthy foods, so we launched a range of, earlier we had launched oats, then masala oats. We launched oodles, which is noodles made out of oats. So we call it oodles. And again, it's a ring form rather than a normal noodles, And then we've gone into Sephora Honey, which came out with flying colors when, the tests were done, and we were the only honey which didn't have any sugar added to it. So that's got good traction. We've launched Sephora Natural Protein. So a whole range of products and many more to come. We've launched a range of immunity products like Kada and turmeric milk, and also Chavan Amrut, we call it, not Chavan Prash. So I think basically we've capitalized on that. We also launched a product which was good for washing vegetables and fruits. We call it Veggie Clean, because the fruits have to be clean, and there's a fear of getting virus through food. So a whole host of new product launches emerging out of this emergency or this crisis.
You know what? Usually when we do off the cuff, we do it on the ground. We invite a bunch of distinguished guests and we offer them something to eat and a drink after the conversation.
Yes.
To wash it down. Unfortunately, we can't do any of that right now.
True.
Still, these sessions are open to our subscribers.
Yes.
Who keep us going. Without our subscribers, we can't survive.
Yeah.
Harshi, you are one of our subscribers.
Absolutely. And I'm a very happy and a proud subscriber. And I go on telling my friends, please subscribe to it.
Lifetime subscriber. So thank you very much. But I will also acknowledge several of our subscribers who are watching, because only our subscribers can watch live. That is Aditya, Ajay, Ashok Malhotra, Gulu Balani, Jaideep Kalgutkar, Kamlesh Sharma, Padmakshi K, Prateek Modi, Ranganathan, Ravi, and Sudeep and Sandeep Budhiraja. So they are obviously fans of yours, not mine. And as more come on to watch, I will mention their names. Ram Charan ji, do you have many entrepreneurs in the world saying that they see opportunities in this grave global crisis?
Yes. A crisis has information. A failure has information. So you look at that information, reiterate that information to see what the new opportunities are. So today, at least in the American scene, there's a huge opportunity for those who are dealing with mental health that has come very high because of the isolation, because of the home, because not having the real social interaction in the business sense, in the working sense. So this part has really become very strong. And there has been, regardless of pandemic, the focus on the ESG, environment, safety and governance, and sustainability. It's a very big momentum across the globe. It has come up. So the opportunities are very, very big. In the ESG case, it's going to be more important than it was in digitizing. It's going to be totally a large number of industries going to be evolving. It has begun. So opportunities is in the eyes of the entrepreneur to see the gap, to see the anomalies, to observe the consumer, to look at the technologies that are getting momentum now to go forward. So this whole area of technologies is expanding exponentially. New materials. You now have $100 genome that you can get and then get yourself properly. We now have companies that are doing drugs in 3 years. One company I work with, they produce a drug in 3 years. And then the vaccine was done in 18 months or less. So all this is going on. The issue is none of us can become obsolete. We must look on the outside and we should look at it, what's changing. We got to change with the speed of change. And people like Harsh, they drive the change. They just not respond. They create change for the better.
So you are a management guru. You are a global thinker that people come to for advice. During the pandemic, what is the advice or what is the question you've been asked most often?
Yeah, there were three. One, attention to people first, employees first. You have to provide assistance, do it. Take care of it. No ifs and no buts. Such an attention to people has not been over the last 50, 60, 70 years. They get it. Communicating, taking care, helping families. I am on a board of company and so on. First thing, you take care of the families, assist them. Number two, from business side, is liquidity, that you can't have cash. If you don't have cash, you can't go anywhere. It's very important. I have a company in Japan where the suppliers are suffering very badly. So you provide cash to them. So they survive, continue to do that. And in doing that, you watch the business side of it. And third was that, which I've gone through, that many companies had not connected with the consumers digitally. So I got calls and I connected to them through various vendors and put them in 9 weeks connecting with the consumers. So that you can at least go online. Many of them were not online. And without being not being online is a very difficult thing to survive.
So if I may summarize the three things: family, cash flows, and digitization.
Digitization. Family part being employees.
Employees, yes, employees, families also matter. All right.
Yeah, right.
Harshi, please describe the book to us. First of all, what made you write this? Describe the book, and then I'll ask you more questions about your journey.
So actually, the book is a memoir of my business journey. And as you mentioned earlier, I was very fortunate to have Professor Charan as my co-author. I just approached him saying that, can you help me in this? I'm struggling a little bit. And he readily agreed. And we had multiple sessions. And I think he's been able to add a lot of value because he has written something like 30 books, which have sold more than 4 million copies.
Yes.
And basically, it's an account of my own journey, my own successes, my failures, peppered with nuggets of wisdom from Professor Charan, because he is the one who has given insights after each chapter in terms of what are the key learnings. The book is in a very easily readable story format. And the theory part comes in only at the end of that chapter and in nuggets of wisdom through him, And the book talks about building a consumer brand business, talent management, creating a culture of innovation, importance of governance, even including topics like how to improve board effectivity, purpose of an organization, corporate social responsibility. So it's meant for entrepreneurs who want to scale up, who want to go from small to medium to large scale. It's meant for professionals who are working in organizations, and also meant for students. So I strongly believe that each one of them will have some take-home value because the book covers a lot and it's very easy reading. And I've given it to some of my friends, their spouses, and they also enjoyed reading, saying that, okay, we also didn't think it was a business book. So it's the fact that it is in story format makes it very interesting reading. And actually, it goes beyond a cut and dry narrative.
Tell us about how your life started as an entrepreneur. We know that you are the son of a business family.
So basically, my family has been in business, and I was the first person from the next generation to join the business. And in the heart of commodity markets in Masjid Bandar, I don't know whether, Shekhar, you've been there, but it's worth going there. It's in the heart of commodity, full of transport godowns, hand carts, almost impossible to enter the office, very dirty, no parking place. And I was the first person from the next generation, no professionals, not even things like an appointment letter. The whole business being managed by my father and my uncles. And my father let me loose, saying that, okay, now you do whatever you want to do. And I had to find out my own bearings, what I liked, what I didn't like. And I'm just a commerce graduate. I have not studied anything beyond a BCom, So I had to go through a lot of learnings, including starting with basics like appointment letter or leave policies or HR policies, to building a brand, to creating a distribution network. And I think that's really helped me because I did everything on my own, including I've traveled, as Professor Charan was saying, into interior markets of towns like Amravati, Vardhan. Now the towns have grown much more in size, but at places after appointing distributors, I would stay with them because there are no hotels in those towns, And I did my own retailing, went to the trade, developed my packaging, went to an advertising agency. I want to work with you, but before that, I want to get trained in advertising. What is advertising? So I spent 1 week with them just to understand what advertising did and how advertising was created. So a lot of bottom-up kind of work and build up the whole organization from scratch and the business from scratch. And I think that experience really helped me a lot because now I understand the business. Since then, we've been recruiting a lot of MBAs, engineers, and we have something like 400-500 MBAs now today in the organization. But I can still live up to them, because I get a lot of coaching from Professor Charan. I read a lot of books. I interact with a lot of thought leaders, and of course, those who are working with me. So, all in all, it's been a very fascinating journey. Lots of failures, but I don't regret them.
So since you call it harsh realities, not harsh realities, there must be many harsh realities you faced.
Yes.
If you can list your 3 favorite harsh realities, the 3 example rule we always follow.
So I would say first is managing the family. As Professor Ramcharan was saying, it's very complex because you have multiple relationships, and in those days, I'm talking of my father and my uncles, we were staying together. It was a joint family, common kitchen. So you are actually all together. And then you are also working together in the business. You are also have a similar share in the business. So you are partner at one level. You are again interacting in the management side, and at home you are again you're staying together. And those boundaries are very difficult to draw. It's very difficult to tell your father, your uncles, if you disagree with them. You have to do it in the right manner. You can't be abrasive. You have to do it softly. You have to coax them. So it's very difficult many a times to operate in a family environment with multiple role relations. So, and then by then 4 of my cousins had joined business, so like 9 Mariwalas in one company was like impossible to attract talent. So how do you overcome all that was my biggest challenge. And I was able to convince my family. It took me 3 years to say that, can I take this business from the earlier company, Bombay Oil Industries, into a new company, Marico, in 1990. It took me 3 years, but looking back, that 3 years spent are fully worth it, because if that had not happened, I would have been managing the family dynamics and got caught into the family networks and complexities, which would not have enabled me to consider on this business. And it was not a financial separation, Shekhar. It was just a management separation. The financial shares of all the 4 families were same as they were in the earlier company. But still, there is a lot of fears. What will we do if you take away this part, which I had built from scratch to about 80 crores over a period of time in Bombay Oil. But I think that to me has been the first, shall I say, a big move. And second, I would say, is when I started recruiting talent, I spent a lot of time in culture building. And I think that's covered very much in detail. How do you create a culture of an organization? How do you arrive at values and culture which act as a source of competitive advantage? How do you drive innovation on a perpetual basis by removing fear of failure, by having diversity within the organization, by driving openness, trust, encouraging people to experiment, empowering them? And I think that was my second big move in terms of culture building. At that time, we were actually relatively much, and I took it like first 3 years, I spent a lot of time in culture building, which is described. It's one of the big chapters in the book. And the third is the fight we had with Levers. Levers had acquired Tomco, Tata Oil Mill Companies, and they had inherited a brand of coconut oil through that acquisition. And they went, they went public saying that we will take over Parachute and Marico. The whole objective was to create a fear within me. By then we had gone public, so the impact it had on our share prices was dramatic. Our share prices just fell, and they basically wanted to put pressure on me to sell out. And I decided to take them on. I was absolutely adamant that I'm not going to sell it to them, because to me, I know this business inside out. For them, it will be one amongst the 30 brands. To me, this was my main brand, and I was going to handle it at my level. At their end, it would be handled by somebody lower down the hierarchy. And we decided to take them on. We gave a guidance to the public markets that there may be an impact on our profitability for 1 or 2 years until we take them on, but we will not sell it out to them.
That's how your big brand was built and has grown.
And actually, then look, over a period of time, they lost interest in this category, and we bought their brand in coconut oil.
Please give us the name of the brand yourself instead of me giving.
So the brand, our brand was Parachute, and the one we bought from them was Nihar. It was an open auction, bidded. Everybody was there, whether it's Dabur or Godrej or Imami or Wipro. But we were very aggressive in our bidding. We were keen.
Was there a bit of a revenge in this that you thought?
Not really. No, I don't.
Buying you out?
No, in business, you can't go by such revenge emotions. You have to be rational. But key rational was that, if we know this business, we can improve our cost structure. And if this brand comes to us, we will be able to take it up to a different level, which it has. At that time, we are miles ahead of other players in terms of what we quoted. But today, if you look back, it has been one of our best acquisitions. The brand must have multiplied in valuation by 20 times or 30x over a period of the last 20 years.
So tell me, how did this brand, the visualization of the brand came? Did it come because somebody thought that a coconut palm tree looks like a parachute coming down?
No, Shekhar, those days, the brand was there. We were selling the coconut oil in bulk tins, 15-liter tins, and the retailer would again dispense it loose to the consumer. So the brand existed. My uncles had, because on World War II days, parachute was something new. So people used to see parachute flying down in the World War days, and that's how the brand name parachute came in. And all my uncles and a lot of my friends said that please change the brand name. But I don't know why, but I decided to continue the brand name. And I think it's paid off, that decision.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, Ramcharanji, family. Is Indian family a strength or a weakness for Indian enterprise?
See, generalization is not going to be really, really fruitful because it depends on the family, it depends on the founder, it depends on the parents. It can be very, very good. It can be also, as you have seen, the public cases in India with very, very bad consequences. So I think it very much depends here. Now, if the parents are allowing the children to be more independent, which is happening now. I have families now in India that I work with, and here the son says, "I don't want to be CEO," and so we coach him and say, "You can be a chairman of the board, and it will add more value than being a CEO, because you will learn the board, you will select the right CEOs, you will have time to go around the world to see the new technologies, new changes, things of that kind, and you will be selecting people." So there's much more freedom coming in, where now this generation is allowing the children to get what they really want to do. I want to mention one thing about Harsh, that he's modest. He didn't tell you that. And that is, when he started this business, and he mentioned to you those dirty environments and nothing clear, he recruited best talent. He didn't have an office to bring them to his office. He met with them, interviewed in the hotels. He brought the right people, a very high caliber from large companies. Entrepreneurs say, "We can't do that." That's not so. Harsh did that because he's very particular to recruit the right people, whatever it takes. Why would they join a small company from a large company? The excitement, the opportunity, and the leadership where this person is going, who knows hands-on what's going on the ground floor. And that's the great part of growing a company. He recruited growth people from large companies.
Yeah. So I have a question for Professor Ramcharan from Ashok Kumar Malhotra, who works for a company called BIMTech. Who wants to know? In fact, his question is addressed to you. I enjoyed reading your book, Social Value Investing. Your book pointed out how companies that did not invest in social values were doomed. Yet in India, success in any enterprise, he's asking, Ashok Kumar Malhotra is asking, in India, success in any enterprise comes at the cost of one having to forget ethics and values. Do ethics and values affect our investments in social values too?
Yeah, I think so. By the way, I don't recall having a book by that name. Mr. Malhotra is confusing probably. But I do believe that this is a cultural thing for us in India, that we do care for social side. I was trained in my days as the family, even though we are not very poor, but we were not even middle class, that a portion of our income should go to societal purposes. So we believe in that. It's very important. And now most of our companies are doing that. The companies need to understand that we have a license by the society, and in that license, we must serve society. So the social values is very important.
Harshi, question for you from somebody from FMCG industry.
Yes.
That is Kamlesh Sharma from Coca-Cola, who says for an FMCG company sector that is hard work, brick and mortar, very physical and very intense, would there be a proportion or percentage of how much the enterprise must spend on scaling a successful product versus investing on R&D and creating a new and acceptable product?
So I don't think, Shekhar, it's either or. You need R&D to create new products, and the starting point is the consumer. What are the unsatisfied needs which you can deliver through the right product to the consumer is the starting point. So if you are saying that I see a certain need where I can provide a product which satisfies that need, I should, and if it is getting a certain critical mass which will satisfy my aspiration as well as profitability, it's a brand and it's not a commodity, then I have to work with R&D to, and if it is within my domain knowledge, like we are saying that we will be only in beauty and wellness. So if you give me an opportunity in, say, fabric care or some household product, I may not pursue it because we want to be in beauty and wellness. So, and we will, our most of our work with consumer will be in that area. So R&D is a means to an end. You have to go on doing work on your own, not necessarily consumer backward, as well as any opportunities you see coming from consumer. And the work on your own would be based on what's happening internationally in your technologies, based on, whether it's a natural trend or whatever trend which are emerging. So I think you can't say that it's either or. You need both. So you need very high level of R&D. And many times you may not need to do R&D on your own. You can buy R&D also from outside, from other countries or other companies. And I think you have to go on investing in the brand. So it's to again reiterate, it's both. You can't. It's not either or.
At which point I see two more of our subscribers have joined in. So welcome to the group, Ashok Malhotra. I presume it's the same Ashok Malhotra who just asked Professor Ramcharan a question. And also we have Nimit Javeri. So Harshi, again, Aruna from Presi Measure Controls Private Limited. What's it more challenging, being a first generation entrepreneur or a second generation entrepreneur?
I don't know. Difficult for me to answer. Though I was not the first generation strictly, but I was a founder of this business. So at one level, you can say I founded the business. Though my father had this presence in edible oils, and to some extent, definitely it helped because we had a good product. But I think if you are first generation, you have much more freedom to do things on your own. A second generation would mean that if you have a different viewpoint compared to the first generation, then to what extent are you allowed to change? As Professor Ramcharan was saying earlier, sometimes the elder in the business may not be open to changing. And I'm not saying that person should not be, but relatively it may be difficult. It all depends on what is the openness to change from, and if they are working together, the first and the second generation, to take it further.
Once again for you, Avinash Rao from TVS, again from a consumer business that literally moves fast. First of all, he sends his compliments to you. He says, firstly, as a marketeer and a student of marketing, I'm in awe of you and admire you greatly, he says to you. And then I'm paraphrasing his question, shortening it. So his key question is, who is more critical to a business, the employee or the customer? And I think I will ask Ramcharanji the same question also. I think maybe he's better qualified to answer that question. So let him start first. Maybe you answer first, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead, please, Harsh.
No. I think employees will ultimately, it's the customer. Employees are root to the customer. Employees again should be interacting with the customer. The customer is the king, as they say. So customer has to be on the topmost of any business, but employees are the ones who will make that customer opportunity, you may call it, or finding out from the customer what are the requirements. I think you need good employees. So you can't say customer will happen on its own. I think it will ultimately, customer will only be happy if you have very good quality of employees who are talented, who are engaged. And the business is complex. It's just not making a product, but distributing the product and, the other staff functions in terms of finance, HR, supply chain, factory management. So I think all that can only be done through talent. I am a very strong believer in good quality talent and culture, and not just attracting good talent, but combine it with the right culture, which will make people perform. And the culture and the talent will act as a source of supreme competitive advantage. But ultimately, they will deliver the key target is the customer. Of course, nowadays the whole thinking has changed that, okay, all your stakeholders have to be a part of this journey. So whether it's your customers, your employees, or your shareholders, or the society or associates, I think all of them are equally important because they're interrelated to each other. If I do something good for my associates, then as Professor Ramcharan was saying, liquidity issue in Japan, if I go and provide that liquidity, that associate is always going to be thankful to me. In a time when he was in trouble, I took that extraordinary step of providing liquidity, which others may not have been able to provide. So I think you have to look at all the stakeholders because all of them are closely interconnected with each other.
Ramcharanji, the same question. Who's more important, the employee or the customer?
No, Harsh really nailed it. And here, I'll give you an example where the employee himself is the product, interface of the employee and the customer. And there's an interchange between them. They learn from each other. They get new ideas, new gaps worked through. Most products in many countries, companies, industries is becoming a service business, not just the product itself. There's his employees. The other part is, as we see this environment, emissions, you look at apparel, my shirt, your shirt, it's fabric. And that fabric has 41% of the emissions of the total. And now, so this company that creates the fabric is an important company. Without that, you won't be able to get the emissions out. So we got to have this whole holistic view, what Harsh is saying. And then you got to say what the interface, Harsh used the word, rightly so, interconnected part of it. And I think sometimes we need to reframe the issue from either or to end and end.
But sir, don't you also agree that the customer is actually your best brand ambassador?
Absolutely, they are. So is the employee, because they have their own networks.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Harshi, Sandeep Buddhiraja from coachwale.com wants to know, how do you recognize that your company is at the cusp of being successful?
See, running a business, so you have to have a good pulse. Any CEO has to have a very good pulse of business. And that pulse can come in terms of how the product, for example, you're launching a new product. What is the consumer traction? I go on asking, what is the dealer response? What is the consumer response? Those who have tried the product, are they repeat buyers? So there is enough quantitative data to show that you are on the right track. So I think a lot will depend on, do you have the right pulse points to check? And I think each businessman, each entrepreneur would have to develop their own set of pulse points because each business is different. But if you track those pulse points, it's not rocket science. You just have to identify what needs to be tracked and you need to track it and get insights out of that data.
So I have a question also from one of the former Marico employees.
Okay.
He's Praveen Iyer. Praveen Iyer, who now works for Relicare Tech Services Private Limited, who says to Harsh Mariwala, I worked for Marico Industries between 1987 and 89. That was before you
Bombay Oil Industries,
in Masjid Mumbai head office, then called as Bombay Oil Industries.
Correct.
And he says it was seeped in old, traditional, family-owned old business values, essentially one brand, Parachute Coconut Oil. What challenges did the then young, foreign-educated Harsh Mariwala face to change the culture and business model and turn it into the big FMCG Marico Industries? That's your entire book, but please give it.
No, first of all, I'm not foreign educated. I'm just a commerce graduate.
That's right.
From Bombay. I may have done some short-term programs.
The reputation you built, nobody believes you could be so successful without foreign education.
No, I think ultimately it has to come from within. I personally think that burning desire to succeed has to come from within. I've never had any. I've mentored by Professor Ramcharan whenever I've had issue, but nobody in my initial days have guided me. I had to find my own answers. So that initiative to search and excel and try and do much more has to come from within. So to me, what made me change from this, it was basically ambition and that burning desire. I have to do something, not monetarily, But basically, I would leave my stamp that, okay, this is something which I've done, which is valuable, which is sustainable, and which will have perpetuity even if I'm not there.
Ram Charan ji, how did Harsh Mariwala discover you, and how did you discover Harsh Mariwala? How did it happen?
I really think Harsh needs to tell us that.
No, I always look out for thought leaders, and because that's in my DNA. Okay, who can help me drive the business? So I was looking for a thought leader in the area of strategy, vision building, and I was interacting with Mr. Bipin Shah, who was earlier, he was chairman of Lipton's, he was a director in Levers, and a very good family friend. Unfortunately, he just expired a few months back. And I said, Bipin bhai, I want to know which are the good consultants you work with in Unilevers. And he gave me Professor Ramcharan's name. And then he just gave me his email. And beyond that, so I had to write to him, and then I had to send him a lot of material in terms of what I was looking out for. And somewhere it clicked, and I was able to get him to Bombay to do a 2-day workshop, and that's how our association started.
Ram Charan ji, your first meeting with Harsh Mariwala, what happened and what is it that struck out about him to you?
You see, the key point for me personally, for everyone, I try to figure out, can I help? If I cannot help, I will not waste time, anybody's time. So the material he sent, I loved it. I could see him, I met him. This is a builder. And I think I can help. At the time, I did not come to India very often. I did not have many clients to come to India because my time was totally absorbed in America with these very large companies. People had to wait 6 months to get on the calendar. And so what I said, I would do that. Plus, I was very, very influenced by Bipin Shah. I had him as a participant in Unilever 4 Acres. They used to come for a program, and I used to teach for a whole week, single person teaching for the whole week. So I said, I'll learn a lot from Harsh. And learning is my passion also, just like Harsh is. Harsh is much ahead. He actually goes out of India and join other YPO people and learn from them. He reads books, gets crystallized. He used to go to Ahmedabad at night to learn marketing and come back in the morning. He had a tutor from Ahmedabad. I've not seen anybody in India doing that or anywhere else. That curiosity, that learning. And failure is a badge of honor. And then you forget that you have to have a fear for it. These are some very important lessons.
Well, he also uses Twitter very well, I have to say that. Ramcharan ji, question that I'd rather direct at you from Adil Mujtaba from HP Incorporated. How difficult is it for a business to be ethical and successful at the same time? And how does an organization maintain the balance between the two? That question Harshi will also answer, but you answer first.
Yeah, I think first, it depends on the environment you're in. Ethical part may be difficult early, but you set the tone and then people come around to it. It may be a little slow. Stay with your values of ethical side. You will win. That will happen. And I think Harsh will tell you more about it.
How do you keep the balance up?
So I don't think it's a balance. Ethics, you have to comply with ethics compliances, irrespective of your size. And many entrepreneurs feel that I'm a small size, so I can start taking shortcuts. But that doesn't, you will get caught somewhere and you will be put back by a few years, So in those days, I remember when in 90s or late 80s, the tax rates were, including wealth tax, was like 80-90%. But if I start evading taxes, then I have to do it with my people. And if I start doing, I'm setting up a culture where they know that I'm doing something and they can also do it. So it's very important to practice very high standards of governance from day one. And that's what I've tried doing in my own business. And I think that has paid off because today all the stakeholders, whether it is your own employees or your board of directors or the society or the capital market, they put a premium on governance, and that's now converted to ESG, which is still better. But I don't see an option but for any entrepreneur to do this, And some people feel that by doing this, I'm foregoing some growth. But you have to do this. You can do both. Otherwise you are looking at a very short-term myopic kind of viewpoint that I need not do it, but when it hits you, it will just put you back by a few years.
So follow-up question from Varun Solanki, Rialto Textiles, that, at a time when so much of the capital gets sucked in by businesses claiming to be sexy and tech-driven, what, according to you, are the best options for traditional small businesses, which works on, he says, FCF, I presume it means free cash flows,
Maybe.
for growth and paying bills of entrepreneurs? So where does the small guy go now?
In terms of investing, what is the question?
No. How does a small enterprise build itself up when all the capital is going elsewhere?
So I think if you have a good business proposition, you'll get money, in my opinion. But you need to have a good business proposition. You need to create a right to win. You have to offer something unique. You have to offer something differentiated. May it be a pioneering product, may it be an innovative product. If you have a Me Too kind of proposition, you will not get people to invest in you. But if you have something interesting, and if people see you getting to that scale in terms of your capability in the building business, I don't think today there are many investors asking me, okay, where can I invest? So at the same time, today there are many investors wanting to invest in your businesses. So there is no dearth of investors. Okay, there may be some new age businesses. You may not be a part of that. And I'm not able to understand the valuations of the new age businesses, but still, I think there are many investors who would back a traditional business if you have a right proposition. We've seen many D2C brands today coming in. In fact, we have acquired 2 brands in Marico in the last 2 years, and they were like traditional businesses. Like we acquired Beard, which is all for beard, and we just acquired Just Herbs, which is an Ayurvedic brand, which is built on e-commerce.
Ramcharanji, what is your view on these valuations that these new tech startups are getting?
Now, you got to be careful on that. First, you got to look at supply and demand. Second, you got to look at the people in it. So I look at the hedge funds in America, and they multiply by X times revenue, and they fund that. And they have their way of methodology. I've looked at that. And in doing that, there is a theme that people don't understand. Investors who are not sophisticated, that you trading your company from one investor to another on the basis of market cap. And at some point, if the proposition does not sustain, it's a very difficult situation and the market cap tumbling down. So I look at one hedge fund, they have invested, I've seen it great depth. And so they invested with a multiple of revenue. But the people who are investing, they're going deep down in the company. They will travel with the sales force to talk to the customers, to see the competition. And they follow the monthly rate of growth. So they have some logic there, but there is a lot of speculation.
So a couple of questions from our student subscribers. Shardul Diwan, who is a CA student, who says, I have heard many economists and businessmen say that India can never emulate China in terms of ease of doing business, job creation, manufacturing output, and exports. What's your take on this, Harshji?
I think we have a long way to go. China is more, shall I say, driven not democratically, but in terms of political way, things can move much faster, depends on the leadership. It can be done in the right way, wrong way, but whatever you say, I think they've been able to do a much faster job in terms of their execution, ease of doing business. We are trying. We have a long way to go. But let's not measure the progress from a short-term window. We have to look at it from much larger term window. And there are huge benefits of being in democratic environment. So let's not forget that. Let's not just say that, okay, last 10 years, China is doing better, but let's look at it from 50 years, 100 years in terms of the benefits to the society being a part of democracy. This is how I see it, but it will be a little longer. Our bet will be taking longer, definitely, compared to China.
So Aditya Kumar Sharma, also a student, obviously an environmentally conscious student. And he's asking this question to both of you, that FMCG industry uses a lot of packaging.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, each one of you, on making this packaging more environment friendly?
So you're right. When we use a lot of plastics and a lot of laminates, and as far as Marico is concerned, we have, as of today, we have ensured that 95% of plastics we use in packaging is either reused or recycled. So I think to that extent, it doesn't go into the environment. We still have 5% left, which we are trying to overcome by usage of some other raw materials. The big problem is in some cases, there are just no raw materials. It's just not a question of cost, but there are no raw materials. But with looking at all the initiatives which are taking place in the environment and the drive towards sustainability, I think it's going to be a matter of time where whatever packaging we do, we think that 100% will be either recycled or reused. So our negative impact on the environment would just not be there over a period of next 3 to 5 years.
Ram Charan ji, how important is it for companies now, the sustainability demand?
There's no choice. Must be done.
Must be done. And do you see
If you don't do it, you'll be forced to do it.
You'll be forced to do it by regulation.
And
Not
customers
only
also.
regulation,
And
Customer.
customers. And customers. That's very
You'll be
important.
forced to do it. There's no choice.
There's no choice. Sridhar Ranganathan from Live Bliss Private Limited. Harshi, to you. What were the strengths of Marico when it was a traditional company? And what strengths of a traditional company did you have to give up when you scaled up?
So I think strengths of what he's asking was strengths of Bombay Oil Industries. So being a family managed company, the decision making is much quicker, you are more agile. So the big challenge is you should not result into a bureaucracy which will delay decisions. And to that extent, we have taken many steps to ensure that we maintain that agility in terms of making decisions. And it may not be the same as we were in Bombay Oil in terms of, the family deciding when to buy raw materials, when to sell raw materials. I think you need to convert that through the professionals, because family beyond a point, now I don't have a day-to-day role in Marico, but we've been able to convert all that agility and the learnings from Bombay Oil Industries and benefits of a family managed by ensuring that we empower people, we recruit very good quality talent. And I mean, it's okay to fail if they make a mistake.
From Cloudtail India, Rajesh Noduri, who wants, frankly, I didn't know D2C, that is direct to consumer. We learn new things every day. Who says that D2C brands, and he mentions the two brands that you just mentioned that you acquired, that is Just Herbs and Beardo.
Correct.
How do you see this landscape evolving in the coming few years when larger companies acquire smaller brands and then scale them up?
Yeah. So, in the last few years, some of the entry barriers which existed earlier for newer entrepreneurs to launch branded consumer goods have been eliminated. The entry barriers are mainly in the area of distribution. One doesn't have to distribute to smaller stores all over India. You can do it through the e-commerce sites like Amazon, Flipkart. And also the advertising budgets which were needed to advertise on television or press are not needed. You can do digital marketing, and digital advertising budgets are much, much lesser. So we've seen a whole upsurge in D2C brands in the last 3 years, and it's just growing dramatically. But at some stage, if they want to go to the stores, depending on the kind of category of products they are in, unless you have a certain critical mass, the cost of servicing the general trade is very, very high. So today, in FMCG, about 7-8% of our sales goes to e-commerce. About 15% goes to the modern trade, and the balance, majority, about 75% still goes to the normal grocer. And that is something like we sell it to 5 million grocers every month. So for a small player to service all that will be very difficult. At some stage, if that forms a very critical part of their business, then sometimes many of them will sell out. Like they have, and we've acquired 2 companies because there was potential to scale it up through distribution, and they were not able to do so because of their scale. So there will be some acquisitions in this space, but this space is going to grow much more.
I'm coming to my last couple of questions. There is a linked question to this from Yash Hisaria of St. Duvans, which I'll direct to Ram Charan ji. He also wants to know, what are your thoughts on D2C FMCG startup ecosystem in India? And did did Hershey consult you before acquiring Just Herbs? And in any case, what is your view on that acquisition?
Yeah, I don't know it. I'm not involved in it. So I couldn't tell anything here. But D2C is here to stay. And I think Harsh mentioned the difficulty of the last mile, whether it is B2C, whether it is B2B, whether it's D2C. That is the difficulty of the last mile. And there will be in America, it's happening. In China, it's definitely there. There are companies that specialize in the last mile. And so the last mile part of it, you're now eliminating that barrier issue.
Gaurav Kumar, I'll stay with Ramcharanji. How does one differentiate between what's good for business and what's good for people?
I think the key point is, I come back to the framing part of it. It's not or, it's and. It has to be both what is for business, what's for people. The key point is, in a given moment, you may have a trade-off, but you got to build your enterprise for a longer term. If it is not good for people, especially customers, the chances are very good it's not going to be good for business. And so you really need to think about, and I've always had this philosophy, which I learned from people like Harsh, people before strategy. People think of a strategy, people before business, people conceive to do that.
Harshi, my young colleague Raghav Bikhchandani has read your book in great detail. And in fact, he has a bunch of questions chapter by chapter, which I will not.
Okay.
I think he should interview you by himself once. But I am interested in a question that he asks from chapter 2, where you talk about your younger days in the family business and where you noted the most minute but crucial details about the varied uses of coconut oil and how much those priceless insights can never be replicated in an MBA. So he wants to ask you, do you think in the modern context, newer startup founders and VCs have lost that desire to go out in the field to get real life experience? Or is it more heightened now?
No, I think that still remains. Any entrepreneur has to be in touch with the final consumer and actually able to go deep into consumers' mind and some of the latent needs which the consumers themselves don't realize that they have certain latent needs. So I think that inciting and asking the right question to the consumer is critical for any business leader. If they think that they can do it through spreadsheets and sitting in the office, then they're mistaken. Consumer linkage, consumer interactions, consumer inciting is the role of a CEO. And unless the CEO does it, people down the line will also not take it seriously.
Ramcharanji, do you also share this idea that that I have, that people become prisoners to spreadsheets and Excel sheets?
You see, when I do select CEOs across the globe, I spend 5 to 6 hours. A good deal of that is knowing what they know about the consumer. It takes 20 minutes to know that. Because if you as a CEO don't know about the consumer in a consumer company, it's a non-starter. What's your habit, how you know that? So I wrote a book with the chief executive of Procter & Gamble, A.G. Leffley, Game Changer. Every weekend, he went to see the consumer. The vice president of Unilever and in P&G required to spend 1 week a year living with the family. It's in my book how to do that. Because remember, a corner store, you see in India, we call Kirana merchant. I was in a shoe shop. I knew the size of the feet of the customers by name. Kirana merchant knows the consumer, remembers it, no computers. Today, sitting in the office doesn't make money.
Good line. Sitting in the office doesn't make money. So Harshi, just last couple of questions. Shubham from HSBC. That FMCG business will now change fundamentally post-COVID because of digitization. How ready are you for that?
So I think we always looked at any discontinuity from an opportunistic point of view. And you need to overinvest because any change in the environment has two sides. One is opportunities, another is threats. If we don't look at it from an opportunistic point of view, then it'll become a threat. So the digital needs a different mindset, and we've seen that the youngsters are more able to drive that mindset rather than people like me. So we have a digital wing which only comprises of, I think, very young talent. They understand, so whether it's digital advertising or digital marketing or digital selling to e-commerce site, also connecting with the consumer. And now in this pandemic, we had to do digital connection to all our retailers. So digital is, I mean, it's very much a part and parcel of the way we do business. You have to integrate digital in whatever you can do it, including employees, tracking them in terms of their engagement levels, chatbots. So I technology can play, it's changed completely the way business happened. And the whole acceleration to digital journey has changed the way we should manage the business dramatically. And I think organizations will have to look at it proactively and be first movers in driving this change.
My colleague
digitize or die.
Yeah.
I see this in China.
Digitize or
in
die.
China.
Digitize or die. That's a very good guru mantra. My colleague Ramya Nair, who covers business for us, she wants to ask Harsh Mariwala, tax terrorism. There's been much discussion on that. Has Modi government made things better or worse?
Actually, I don't know. I'm not because we are more Indian based. So the whole, I mean, if you have very high standards of governance, you don't get impacted, in my opinion. So we have not been impacted. So frankly, for us, it goes on the business as usual. But in some cases, there have been some raids. Like today, I read somewhere on Dainik Bhaskar, there is some raids. I don't know, frankly. Luckily, we are insulated from that. So I think beyond that, I'm not able to add value to the subject.
All right, sir. So the final question, it's not directed to anybody in particular. So I'm directing it to the guru, to Ram Charan ji. This is from Sunil Jaiman from Wayne State University School of Medicine, who says, what would your advice be to an entrepreneur as the mantra of success? Persistence or passion, or customer-centric innovation, or uncommon thinking? So persistence
All the
or passion?
three. All the three.
All the three. Will you put them in an order?
But learn from Harsh. Get to know the consumer. Get to know the consumer. What is it? What is his pain point? What is convenience? Start from the consumer. And to do that, you accept failures.
Yeah.
You persist, you iterate, you learn from it. And you need resilience, tenacity to go after. Because one thing in among other things in Harsh, conviction to continue and persist comes from knowing what the consumer wants, what the consumer will need, what the consumer is not getting. That is the undying conviction.
Harshi, a final word before I let you both go.
No, it's a pleasure to interact with you. I think first time, Shekhar, you're interviewing me. So it's my pleasure to be with you. And all I can say is to all the viewers of this show, please, I think it's much more in detail. The book is covered. It will have lots of nuggets of wisdom. So please read the book,
Yes,
give me
absolutely.
feedback. And if Shekhar, I think I also saw that, you read something. I think one of your clutter episodes, you read it the whole night. You read something, I don't remember which one. But if you can read the book whenever you get time,
Yes,
I know you have a lot of reading. And let me know
absolutely, sir. And
how you find the book.
everybody, particularly those who want to be entrepreneurs, must read the book. It will be like a textbook because two masters have written it together. So thank you very much, Ram Charan ji, and thank you very much, Harshi, for your patience and time.
Thank you, Ram Charan ji, and thank you.
Thank you,
Shekhar. Yeah.